Welcome to the channel, everybody. It's Friday. We made it. What a trip. These are the headlines today. And Utah mother has dropped out after taking the VC. Now, of course, I'm sure the fact checkers will be all over this and try to say there's no causal relationship, right? Because they have to investigate. But we already know the track record of some of these pharmaceutical companies in denying connections of any kind. The corruption has been long established. We're not making a leap when we say that these people are being corrupt in the way that they handle these adverse events, because there's already been a track record for it. Pfizer has gotten in a lot of trouble for covering up adverse events in the past and the corruption associated with them to the tune of billions of dollars in fines. So now why all of a sudden, well, are we going to trust these people to report these adverse events correctly? So this is the latest. This poor woman dropped out after the second dose, and there's her little girl now without a mother. What else is going on in the headlines? Well, it is becoming more and more apparent that the president is in the first stages of some kind of mental breakdown. He has not even held a formal news conference. Now they're trying to write this off as, oh, this is bringing up accountability questions, but this is the least of our worries, accountability. The real problem is, why can't he get up in front of a group of people in a news press conference and reporters and talk and make it through a sentence and talk about things? And this is because already he's forgetting stuff. He's forgetting the names of his own people in his own cabinet. Now, we all have mental moments, but there's something else going on here, and everybody knows it. And what this does is it places Kamala in the crosshairs of the presidency. And many of you had already anticipated this. You said basically she will become the president because he ain't going to make it 4 years. So let's read a little bit about this. I had to click off the other story because, YouTube doesn't like that. But you guys get the gist of what's going on with that. I'll pin that story in the comments. Make sure you guys are okay. It looks like you guys can all hear me. Some people think he's acting dumb on purpose. Eric, yeah, I agree with you, but I think he's actually really losing it. He never really was a qualified candidate. This is why it's so crazy this is why people were so angry that he actually got elected, because they knew that it wasn't possible. Halfway in his first 100 days, Beau Biden has yet to hold a formal solo news conference, raising questions about accountability, with the White House under increasing pressure to explain why. Even as the nation deals with multiple crises, a deadly spamdemic, and the devastating economic fallout, Biden has gone longer without facing extended questions from reporters than any of his 15 predecessors over the past 100 years. The tough exchanges in such a setting can reveal much more to Americans about a president's thinking and test his explanation. See, they're not even addressing the big white elephant in the room, which is the real reason why he won't get up in front of a crowd outside of a teleprompter and answer questions. So let's get into the topic of today's show. And so when we think about what have gone through, what really is the final analysis about the CV-19 spamdemic? What is the big white elephant in the room? What is the lesson that is being learned here? What is the big thing being revealed about what we just went through? Well, I think we could probably sum it up in one word, and that is waste. Waste that will enslave us for generations. Enslavement that we're already experiencing and feeling right now. Economic enslavement that will be felt for a very long time. And the fact of the matter is that if the powers that be would have taken a more moderate approach to all this, like the approach that people like you and me and all of us suggested, we would not be in this kind of hot water based on all of this waste. I mean, do we really believe that the government can keep handing out trillions of dollars and our economy will stay the same or even survive? And here we are on our third stimulus, most of which was spent on CV-19 measures that were rarely even used, such as emergency hospitals, supplies, ventilators that were hardly ever used. And what did we get out of the trillions that have already been spent? Well, you and I got $1,200, $600, and $1,400, $3,200 total in 9 months. This breaks down to $600 and $600 and $600 for the first two stimuluses, which is $666, and now the last stimulus, which is $700 and $700. So that's $77. So we had $666 and $77. Something's not right here. This is some kind of numerical sorcery that is being cast upon us. So today's show is about the waste going on in the UK. These are the Nightingale hospitals, and there were 3 of them. They cost £500 million. Now, a pound is worth more than $1. So this is closer to $750 million, or $1 billion, that were spent. They were open in anticipation of CV-19. And only one of these hospitals, here's one of the hospitals here. This is a big, giant dinosaur. Wasted. They can't even staff these hospitals. They remained empty for most of the time. And 2 of the hospitals, 2 of the 3, didn't even have any CV-19 patients. Only one of them had patients. And it was only like 30 or 40 patients. Here it says here, let's read through this article a little bit. Because these hospitals are now closing after they spent $750 million. 4 of England's Nightingale hospitals are to close permanently later this month after costing taxpayers hundreds of millions of pounds. 3 of the emergency field hospitals will remain open, with sites in London and Sunderland being used as mass VC centers. Maybe this was the original purpose of them to begin with. They were built as mass VC centers, not hospitals to treat people who came down with whatever they said they came down with. The 116-bed hospital in Exeter will be used for diagnostic tests and could be converted to help hospitals carry out more routine care to help cut backlogs. The remaining 4 in Birmingham, Bristol, Harrogate, and Manchester will all close permanently within weeks. The Nightingale hospitals were open at the start of the CV spamdemic at a cost of $500 million to cope with a predicted surge in critically ill patients. The Health Service Journal reported they were being stood down from April 1 after the Chancellor made no more money available for them in the budget after this month. In reality, the hospitals were barely used. London's Nightingale Hospital at the Excel Conference Centre in East London saw only 54 patients at the peak of the first wave. It has since opened as a non-CV rehabilitation facility with 64 beds, but has again struggled to attract patients from London's hospitals. They can't even get patients to come in. Some of the other temporary hospitals either never saw any patient or have used to treat recovering patients who are almost ready to go home. Do you see how this whole thing was inflated to fit a narrative? Now, people can look at this 2 ways. They can say, oh, well, what if we weren't prepared? This could have been far worse. Well, I don't buy it. Because there were far scarier diseases that have come and gone throughout history that we have barely reacted to, that were just as virulent and just as contagious and just as scary, if not more scary. So, what is this Nightingale thing? We're going to talk a little bit about that. Because the WHO spilled the beans about CV-19 just months before there was a single case in China. How did they spill the beans? Well, in 2019, on the 200th anniversary of Florence Nightingale's birth, remember the hospitals were named after her, they declared the following year, 2020, to be the year of the nurse and the midwife. Nurses and midwives play an essential role in delivering health care globally, and their roles extend across most healthcare systems. So, they were already talking about the year of the nurse. Now, who was Florence Nightingale? We'll get into more detail about her later in the show, but basically, she was a nurse that was renowned for revolutionizing nursing during, you guessed it, spamdemics and outbreaks. Now, what are they doing about this? How did they know this was going to happen? Because they planned it. And now they're trying to whitewash this as some kind of coincidence that they just so happened to declare this the year of the nurse just in time for the spamdemic. Now, what is this all about? Why did they do this? Why did they declare this the year of the nurse? Well, this was a recruiting tool. It was pre-programming to position nurses around the world to be ready for what they were planning and what was coming. They really pump up nurses as heroes going into battle. And we had exposed all this last year while this was happening. And even the Economist cover got into the action. Again, this was a 2019 cover before the first case ever broke. They knew this was going to be the year of the nurse. And here they put in Nightingale at the bottom of this 2020. Vision is 2020. We're all seeing clearly. Here's another excerpt. This is Florence Nightingale here. I attribute my success to this. I never gave or took any excuse. The Economists, and they really were throttling and patronizing the nurses in preparation for what they knew was coming. They needed the nurses' support. They were the front lines in all of this. They needed them to buy the lie, to sell out, and most did. Now, Giggle, we're going to start calling them Giggle, okay? People that run YouTube. They even got into the action with Project Nightingale. What's Project Nightingale? Well, as you can see, this even goes back to early 2019, before the first case of CV-19 in China, and they were already talking about Project Nightingale. Let's read about this. This almost, as we read through this, is almost going to sound like a dry run for contact tracing and data storage, in which they uploaded people's private medical information to the cloud without their knowledge. They got in a lot of trouble for this too. Project Nightingale is a data storage and processing project by Google Cloud and Ascension. Now, Ascension are these Catholic healthcare system hospitals, 2,600 hospitals, doctors, and offices. Many of you may go to one of these Ascension hospitals to get your care. It's in 21 states, tens of millions of patient records available for processing healthcare data. Ascension is one of the largest healthcare systems in the U.S. with comprehensive and specific healthcare information of millions who are part of the system. The project is Google's attempt to gain a foothold into the healthcare industry. Why does Google, Giggle, want to be part of the healthcare industry right before the spamdemic happened? Gotta ask yourself. It says here, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple are all also actively advancing in healthcare. Why are these tech companies trying to get into healthcare? So, Giggle had a contract with called Project Nightingale. Now, let's get down into the specifics of this. The data sharing include patient names and dates of birth with doctor diagnosis, lab results, hospitalization records. Talk about a violation of privacy. Amounting to access to complete electronic health records. Also including the data sharing are addresses of the patient, family members, allergies, immunization. I mean, this is a contact tracer's dream right here. Investigations. Soon after the Wall Street Journal reported on Project Nightingale, The Guardian published an account from an anonymous whistleblower who worked on Project Nightingale. Person who raised concerns that patients could not opt in or out of having their records stored on Giggle's servers. And the project may not be HIPAA compliant. This is privacy compliant. So, the HHS launched an inquiry into Giggle's partnership with Ascension. Investigation will be run by HHS Office of Civil Rights. Director Roger Servino said his office would like to learn more information about this mass collection of individuals' medical records with respects to the implication for patient privacy. And that's where the story ends, just on the eve of CV-19 in the year of the nurse. Now let's get into this woman. And here's where things get creepy. Now we'd covered this on previous shows, but I decided to revisit this because this is just crazy. So look at the date of birth here. She was born 201 years ago now, but last year when this all kicked off, she was born on the 200 years ago. And look at her birthday, May 12th. Notice something really awkward and weird and bizarre? 133rd day of the year in leap years with 233 remaining. 33 and 33 is 66. And when you become a nurse, many nurses take the oath of Florence Nightingale. Let's look at this oath here. I think it's listed here. The Lady with the Lamp. Early life, contributions, legacy. Let's see. Let's just type in oath. Here it is. So, the Nightingale Pledge, it's called, is a modified version of the Hippocratic Oath, which is what the doctors take. And they recite at their pinning ceremony and at the end of training. And let's see if they actually talk about the oath here. They used to have it in this Wikipedia article. I don't think they're listing it here. But, oh, here it is. Here it is. Let's look at this. I don't even want to say this because it's probably like a ritual pledge. Pledge myself before God and in the presence of this assembly to pass my life in purity and to practice my profession faithfully, abstain from whatever is deleterious and mischievous, and will not take or knowingly administer any harmful drug. I mean, this is exactly what the opposite of what they did or are now doing. I would do all in my power to maintain and elevate the standard of my profession, and will hold in confidence all personal matters committed to my keeping and all family affairs coming to my knowledge in the practice of my calling. With loyalty will I endeavor to aid the physician in his work and devote myself to the welfare of those committed to my care. And then you see stories like this. It's heartbreaking. So, it seems to me that we are in the midst of one giant ritual based on them disclosing what was coming through the year of the nurse and midwives, and then carrying out this on all of us. Let's go into the chat and let this catch up, and do a little Q&A with you guys. Unreal. All right. Now, there's a recording of her voice, her actual voice. And yeah, it's used using old recording equipment. But if you go on the Wikipedia page, and I'll pin this, of course, in the comments, you can hear her voice, and it sounds so creepy. I don't know what kind of woman this was, but we all know that Florence Nightingale was mentioned in Back to the Future. Are you starting to see the connections now? Back to the Future. When Marty, his father, he succumbed to the Florence Nightingale effect, or his mother did, and Doc Brown speaks it. Now, what's the connection there? Well, 88 miles an hour to jump through time. And of course, Biff was Trump. And he has a 66th floor penthouse, which links back into coded messaging for Florence Nightingale, the 200 years, the president under which all of this would kick off. Crazy times, you guys. Okay, here we go. Now the chat caught up. Seems like a genetic thing going on. Says truth fears no scrutiny. Someone says loaded with prions. Okay. Drinking the Jim Jones Kool-Aid. Absolutely. MJ Fox. Now, some of you had asked me, and this will be our next show. I don't know if this will go up tomorrow or this will go up Sunday or maybe even Monday. But basically, I'm looking at the newest Maze Runner film, which is all about a spamdemic that goes across the world, and the only survivors are children. Oh, that was 2018. What's happening right now? The children are the only ones unaffected. It's, again, pre-programming before a single case ever taken place. Now, I'm only in the first 15-20 minutes of the film. It's called The Maze Runner. Let me see if I got the thing pulled up here. Here it is. The Death Cure. And it opens up with basically a heist. So these children are they're rescuing their counterparts, and they steal this helicopter, and they rescue a bunch of their counterparts out of a train car. They lift the train car right off the tracks. This did $288 million, and this was in 2018 before the first case ever hit. And so there's all kinds of pre-programming in here. Like I said, I'm only in the first 20 minutes, but I can almost guarantee you we're going to find pre-programming in this, because this is what these people do. There's Dylan O'Brien, he's the main character. Let's look at some of these birthdays real quick before we... Oh, look! This is Friday the 13th. She was born on the day this all kicked off. Friday the 13th was when Mr. T declared the national emergency. I wonder if this was a Friday too, when she was born. There you go, right there. And we're going to find all kinds of stuff, you guys. So we'll take a look at that. Let's see a couple of these other... I always look at the birthdays because they cast these people specifically to fit into the Matrix. Wow. June 24th. Look at a couple of these characters. I'll be back in the chat with you guys. This guy's been around forever. He was in The Mandalorian. He played the bad guy. This guy's creepy. He was in what was this guy? Oh, he was in Game of Thrones. This creepy guy. All these actors are creepy to me. Anyway, let's go back here. So I'll be working on that over the weekend. I'll probably do like a montage I'll put up over the weekend, and we'll do a full show on it probably. But thanks for the shout outs, you guys. You guys are all amazing. We are in the valley of the shadow of death. It certainly feels like that, doesn't it? The end will be wicked is the slogan for the movie, says someone. Wow. Okay, I'll be sure and figure that out. You guys are funny. Face is very punchable. You're right about UK hospitals. Yeah, big waste of money, right? I mean, this is all our money they're spending. We cannot forget that. We're going to have to pay for this eventually. We're paying for it now. Yeah, you're getting a check right now, but that means that they're going to do something very bad to us later. And that's just simple economics. No economist will argue with you about that. So, break the TV, says Young Love 4020. All right. Okay, I'm going to let you guys get started on your weekend. Some of you got to go into work today. And everybody thumbs up the video if you can. If the information that you heard today resonated with you. I put a lot of time and effort into preparing something for you guys every single day so that we can wake up from this madness. Things that you can share, get people to open their eyes, you know, without making too wild of assumptions about anything, just presenting just common sense, critical thought. You know, we don't really have a lot of that anymore. Looking at how things connect to one another. And I appreciate it when you guys share these videos. All right. Have a great day, everyone. Much love.